today, so you're all up on it. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, sorry, I was on another Zoom call, so I rushed
Oh
over.
gosh, Zoom call to Zoom call. You're
Yeah,
doing great. Did you
if-
want to say anything to the group before I launch in?
Yeah, sure, I do, and if maybe somebody wanted to make me a co-host, I can also help let people in, so if that's helpful. But yeah, I just want to welcome everybody and just congratulate our community for another great year and looking forward to the coming year. And I think time and time again, the benefits of this platform of this program that the Grinspoon Foundation makes possible for our community is bearing a lot of fruit and will benefit us long into the future. And so I'm just really grateful for all of your participation and thank Os for her fantastic leadership and for all the rest of you for being a part of this. That's all.
Thank you, Eileen. Hi, Jason.
Oh, and thank you to Tammy as well, obviously, for all the support.
You bet. It is incredible to me to think that I've been working with your community for 2 years and I have not been there in person and I have not met you one-on-one other than through these beautiful little boxes or windows, as some people like to call them, but that you've done so incredibly beautifully. It is so hard to believe that you're getting into year 3 already, right? Just feels like yesterday, at least to me. So I'm going to share my screen. I had it all ready for you. Okay, if you can see this, just give me a thumbs up so that I can, great. Great, and I encourage you to stay on with your camera if you can, if you're willing to do so. It's nice to see people's faces and reactions and things like that. So thank you so much for doing that. And if I don't look like I'm looking at you, it's because I'm trying to pay attention to the camera that's in front of me. But know that I am, when my eyes wander, it's usually because I want to see your faces rather than mine. So let me, I don't know why I'm looking at this. Okay, so anyway, the year 3 training, which we are starting one evening before your official start of year 3, is titled Stories, Stewardship, and Formalization, and they are all connected. I also want to ask your indulgence. I did have COVID about a month ago, and the only thing that's left by me is the COVID cough, we fondly call it. So if I have a problem, I will mute myself, and then Eileen or Osnat will jump in with a handily prepared question to get you all chatting. But that's all. I'll be sipping water and I have lozenges and everything. Okay, let's get started. So first we'll start with stories. Then we'll talk a little bit more about stewardship, formalization, and what to expect for year 3. So you have seen this before. This is not our most updated, but I did want to tell you that the good news is we just received the updated numbers that were compiled from the reports that went out at the end of June, which include you guys. We are at 755 partner organizations. We're over 24,000 donors, and about 152 million has been placed in endowment funds in organizations. With 1.3, so we are running at about 10% that we're seeing a little higher, maybe 11 or 12% of realized gifts, which is really nice. And it tells us that people are not just saying this is a good idea for later, but people are also saying, you know, if I'm going to do this later, maybe I can do something even now while I'm alive and begin to see the impact of it. So that really feels good. And you're all wondering how you're doing, but as of yesterday, there are 403 legacy commitments. Woohoo! With an estimated future value of $11.7 million. You are at 48% formalized, which is incredible. And I'll tell you why when we get to the formalization section. And you already have $391,000 realized from about 30 gifts. So those numbers get better. The more numbers that you get, the data gets better and tells us more, but you should really be proud of yourselves as a community. Now that 403 legacy commitments, there is a lot of overlap, as you can we expect from a more cohesive Jewish community like yours. And so that 403 commitments represents just over 200, about 230 unique donors. And what I like to point out is that in a community, if you were to look at the total number of Jews in Ann Arbor, and then say, okay, so of the total number of Jews, there's 20% of them that are affiliated and that go to synagogues and show up for things and are donors to Federation and other such things. And of those people, 230 have made legacy commitments. So you have a lot more to go, and that we would like to show that this isn't the end of anything. This is really just the beginning. So I want to start off by asking you to give me some information. Write in the chat, what are 3 words or qualities that for you make a really good story? I don't always follow my chat box, but I will look. I want to see what 3 words or qualities make a good story. Something emotional and compelling, personal, a beginning, middle, and end, heart. These are great, great answers. Okay, I'll just skip to the next part then. All right, keep them coming. Overcoming obstacles, conflict and resolution, connection. So what I'm gonna talk about is less instruction than a reminder of what you already know. And that is that we tell stories all day long. Our brains respond to them over the recitation of numbers. Although some people, their brains respond to numbers. I do understand that. When we hear a story, we relate it to our own experience, that our brains are like file cabinets. And when we hear a story, we search through the files and say, where does that connect with me and my experience? We connect to the storyteller, the person telling the story. We use the details that are given to us to create images. So really good stories have a lot of concrete details that help our brains create an image. We feel the emotional impact of the story. So I like to start with our Jewish original creation story, Bereshit. In Hebrew, it's Bereshit, bara Elohim, et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So now I'm going to ask you in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and just call it out, what questions does this cause you to have? This very short story that is in the beginning of our Torah. I think it is very curious, but I'm curious when you hear that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Beginning of what? How was it created? When was it created? Where was God prior to the beginning? What happened after it was created? How was there nothing if God was there? Why was it created? Even more, why does the Torah, our original document, start with the second letter of the alphabet, Bet? Why not something that starts with Aleph? When you even look at the Hebrew, why is the Hebrew in the black space? What happens to the white space in the middle? So there's so much curiosity about just these few words. And I have this slide about Pesach, but I was really thinking today that I really should have put the machzor in there because it's really now about the high holidays coming up. On Pesach, we retell the same story. We were slaves in the land of Egypt. My father was a wandering Aramean. God took us out with an outstretched arm, right? These stories that we sit around the table, we tell from generation to generation. It's part of who we are. So what is it that happens when we tell these stories year after year? I did just hear this great thing that sometimes at Pesach, I tell this story about how I was in the Soviet Union way back when in 1988, 87. And I think I can't tell it this year because my family, same family that's around the table every year, and they all know the story. So somebody suggested have them tell the story. So we learn, each generation learns the stories of the people that came before them. And that becomes part of their story as well. What I was thinking about high holidays is the Unetane Tokef prayer, that sort of centerpiece of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur liturgy, where we talk about who by fire and who by water, who of us will be here next year and who will have passed on. And it brings us into this space of, wow, this universe is bigger than just me. There's a lot going on here. Storytelling is an emotional investment. It impacts the way we feel. It impacts the way we think. They hold our interest. They teach us new things. It impacts the way we act, brings energy to the message, and it impacts the way we behave, that hopefully stories cause us to take action. So the elements of a great story, there's a main character, a protagonist or an antagonist. It simplifies a complex idea to its very essence. It creates a connection with the reader, eliciting emotion. It gives the reader one strong message. It inspires action. It can be simple and brief, and an image can tell a story all on its own. So when we look at that, in the beginning story with those elements, we see the main character, maybe it's God, the complex ideas that the world was created, so there must be some purpose. I feel a sense of wonder and awe when I think about that. It creates a connection between me and this universe. And the action that it inspires is, what's my role? Who am I in this story? So here's another story. I grew up poor in the 1930s, the only Jew in my neighborhood. I didn't know much about being Jewish, except that life would certainly be easier if I weren't. I had a bent for entrepreneurship and a strong desire to someday achieve financial success. 25 years ago, tongue cancer taught me that life is about more than making money. Judaism brought joy, meaning, and purpose into my ancestors' lives, a thirst for knowledge, a passion for justice, a commitment to care for weak and oppressed, and a desire to make the world a better place. Being Jewish was an incredible gift, and I was not going to squander it. And that's part of Harold Grinspoon's story. And that's his giving pledge letter, has that story in it. So it's a great story, right? There's a main character. It simplifies a complex idea using, how can I use my money to bring the gifts of Judaism to other people? It elicits emotion, that there's gratitude there, there's opportunity, and there's a connection formed between generations. I think there was one strong message: I can make a difference. That one man said, I can make a difference, which inspires me to think, I can make a difference, right? What difference can I make? I may not have his wealth, but I make a difference in my corner of the world and among the people that I touch. And what difference do I want to make? As I tucked in my daughter Maya, she took my hand and said, my teacher says that God watches over us every night, so we should say the Shema before bed. Will you say it with me? Sitting there in the dark with precious Maya, I added my own little prayer of thanks to the Hillel Academy for helping me pass on my valued traditions to my granddaughter, from Zadie Sherman. I loved this story, not only because how it touches me, and it just really gets to my heart and his heart, but also it connects me to the storyteller. It connects me to his granddaughter. So it's connecting generations. It also connects me to Hillel Academy. Right now, Zadie Sherman is associated with Hillel Academy. So he brought in the organization into the story. I thought that was really magnificent, the way that was done. And the thing I took about that, away from that, the strong message is that the school and I are working together to transmit values to the next generation. The action that it inspired was, how can I make a difference? Here's a different story that highlights how an organizational impact story. Robin and her 2 young children were feeling alone in a new city. They joined in our Kabbalat Shabbat service, felt embraced by the warmth of the congregation, met other young families, and now feel part of our community. So we take Robin, and the synagogue is her source of connection. She felt alone, but the congregants were warm and welcoming. It creates connections. We at the synagogue, we make strangers into friends. And the message is, our congregation is here for you. And I think it inspires action. When you are involved, the way Robin and her family came and got involved, you are also connected. So great organizational impact story. These are 2 kinds of stories that came out of the community of Delaware. Like yours, a small and cohesive community. What will your Jewish legacy be? And they created a template, which each month they highlighted a different family with a picture of that family and a small little blurb about their story, who they're in, what organizations they've been involved with, what Jewish organizations, and what it has meant to them. So really nice way to use marketing and advertising to tell a story. You can ask donors to write their own story. We're going to be doing a little bit of that tonight. You can interview donors and write up a story for them. You can also ask staff to document the stories of people that are impacted. I know with Jewish Family Service, very often there's confidentiality issues and they don't want to ask their donors who have benefited to out themselves and share their story with everybody. But sometimes a caseworker might hear a story and think, wow, that's an amazing
We'll get on
testimony.
close. Not really, no.
Somebody has their mic on, so if you can all mute yourselves, unless you're me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. So you can actually train your staff to, when they hear a story that talks about the impact the organization is having on real people, that they should ask that person if they can share that story, and then document the story and pass it on to somebody on your legacy team. Stories can encourage formalization, which is why we're really talking about it tonight. As in year 3, you're shifting from amassing letters of intent, which you've done a great job doing, and now you're going to the next phase, which is formalizing the letters of intent that you received in years 1 and 2. So here's an example of an interview style testimony where the donor said, I made provisions for a legacy gift for Judea in my will for completely selfish reasons for my children, right? So she told how she made the gift. And it was from the Jewish Family Services somewhere. Sorry, don't know what city it was, but it's a story of this couple, and they're dedicated to helping others. They chose to name JFS as a beneficiary in their IRA. So by being very specific about the vehicle that you choose to formalize, you actually make somebody think, oh, I hadn't thought of using my IRA or a percentage of my IRA as a charitable gift. And that's actually relatively easy to do, and it doesn't involve lawyers and changing wills. So let's get started. You can take a selfie. You can do one now if you have your phone, or you can do it right after this, as long as you smile, and email it to Osnat, and then she's halfway there. What's the other half? The other half is to write your story, your donor story, because you are all legacy donors. So what what are some good prompts? What's most significant to you about being Jewish? Why did you choose to make your legacy commitment? What do you hope to accomplish with this gift? What are your hopes for the Jewish community of the future? Great questions, any one of them to get you started thinking, why did I do this? I'm thinking sometimes people say, I did it because so-and-so asked. When you get past that, right, that's often how you got to a meeting or got to serve on a board. But I can't make anybody give their time or their money to anything. They have to want to do that. So what is it that is motivating you or any of the people who are making these beautiful gifts to actually say, yes, you must really care about something and hope for something. And this is your opportunity to share that. Then the last question is if you can include how you formalized it, if you're willing to share that, that can be very inspirational. Here's an example of someone, Amy Steffson from Seattle, Washington, with the Congregation Beth Shalom. And it was a nice testimonial. I love the picture. I love the quote. Seattle used this as a template so that they sort of had the same look. And each month or each week, I think they used it in a social media campaign. So put it on Facebook. They could alternate, just put different people's faces and different people's stories. Everybody has a story, and you want to use these stories everywhere. So if somebody gives you a short video, that's something you can send out or send out a link. You can post them on social media in Facebook or Instagram. You can put them on your website. A lot of people, when they have a listing of legacy donors, may hyperlink a name, and that would take you to a short video or statement about why that person made a legacy gift. You can email these stories around. You can include them in newsletters, not all at the same time, right? Put in one a month or one every 2 months and alternate it with an article on using insurance as using life insurance as a legacy gift, or using part of your IRA as a legacy gift. You can use these stories at events. I put Story Booth because my community in Atlanta just had their annual celebration, and they had somebody that interviews people for a living, does podcasts, and she was there in a booth, and they invited legacy donors to come in for a few minutes and be interviewed. And then they were able to capture some of those stories with some leading questions and then use them in a whole bunch of different ways after the event. You can have a poster at an event. You just make this into a poster, put it on an easel, and then people can see it and read it. You can include it in a report to make the reports come alive. And you can start a meeting with a story. When you're at those annual meetings and everybody thinks it's going to be, okay, old business, new business, you know, let's take the vote, let's do the nominations, who seconds it. You can start a story. You can start your meeting with a story, a legacy donor and why they made their gift. So I'm going to take a short break just to breathe and to invite you, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to share about stories and using stories to push your legacy effort forward.
I have a question. This is Jen.
Yeah, Jen.
So given that a lot of our donors are supporting multiple organizations, and that obviously specificity is best, do you recommend that each organization asks for a story or a testimonial, or is it better to try and encompass all of the organizations into one story?
That is a great question. I think you can do it yes and, like either or and both. You can certainly go right ahead if you know that you have a legacy donor and do it for your organization. If you know that they've given to others, like a nice question to ask them, are there others? Like when you're you're getting their testimony, you can say, are there other Jewish organizations that you are supporting with your legacy gift as well? Right, that tells them that you're all together in this, and that you will all benefit from that, and that people and our community is interconnected, and many of us support more than one thing. The other way is that it can come from Osnat. I'm going to give her a job here, and that is, Osnat, you know who the multiples are. You might reach out to some of those organizations and say, is this a testimonial, a story you'd like to get? Or maybe you want to be the initiator of some of those stories where people have given multiples, and then just let the organizations know that you're working with this person on their testimony so they don't go to the same person. We have one community that in each month of their Jewish newspaper, they highlight a different organization, and that organization can put in a testimonial if they want from that organization. So that's also a nice way to show the community that you're working on this effort together. That's a nice way to do it too. Any other questions or comments? All right. So stewardship. We bring it up here again and again, because we know that stewardship will make the difference. It's critical to motivating donors to formalize their intent. You won't get to formalization without stewardship, and chances are you won't realize these gifts without ongoing stewardship. And stewardship has to go beyond any one of you. It has to be part of the system, of the culture that you are a part of, which is why it's going to start with you. But if it ends with you, then you're not doing the job that you could. So effective stewardship, you have seen this chart before. Care are the personal touches, the thank you notes that someone was writing Susan was writing as we began the call. The phone calls before Rosh Hashanah, just wishing you a happy new year on behalf of the legacy team. We thank you so much for ensuring our future with your legacy gift. It reminds the donor that they made this gift. And then when you come around in however many months to say, have you had an opportunity to formalize your gift? They'll have remembered, you will have reminded them that they made this gift. It won't be a surprise. Some people like to send birthday cards. We like to suggest the anniversary of the day that they made their legacy commitment is a nice thing because they don't expect it. I get the most birthday cards these years from the charities that I give to. So they all got the memo. That's good. You don't want to be out-stewarded, meaning you don't want one of your organizations to do it better than another. So you all have to make sure that you're doing robust stewardship. The share is sharing the fact that somebody's made a legacy commitment with others. So it's through a newsletter, it's through your website or social media, it's listings, it's testimonials, these stories, that's sharing. So you're caring, you're sharing. And the biggest motivator to making a legacy gift is hearing the story of another living legacy donor. Dr. Russell James has done research on that and has taught us that. Honor means showing recognition for legacy donors at other community events. Like if you have a legacy Shabbat, you're honoring your legacy donors at a Shabbat service. Or we're coming up to the high holidays, a nice idea when you're asking people to hold the Torahs at Kol Nidre or to parade the Torahs around or to have aliyot, maybe you can invite a legacy donor on behalf of your legacy donors, or invite all the legacy donors up for a blessing, right? Some way that you can honor them at other events and meetings and opportunities. And then the last thing is invite. So you might have once a year, maybe a special gathering just for legacy donors, or maybe for major donors and legacy donors. It might be a reception before another event. It could be a Shabbat dinner or an event that not everybody is invited to. It could be just a social gathering. And as we've seen in the last 2 years, it could be on Zoom. Sometimes it's fun to have a sort of an executive peek an insider look at something going on, and we're going to offer this only to our legacy donors. I'm going to talk more about the stewardship plan at the end, because this is something we're going to ask you to do in the next month. We've made it really easy for you to do, and you've had 2 years to think about and practice stewardship. So what we've done is we've created a fillable PDF. OSNOT will be sending this out to you after the training. And we'd like you to identify a minimum of one area: care, share, honor, and invite, and create a minimum of one effort in each of the areas. And you'll assign a projected date to it, and then you'll tell us when it's completed. And this is part of your year 3 requirements for getting the grant. So what we've done is the first year we said, here's stewardship. It's a good idea, try it out. And the second year, we taught you a little more about stewardship, and you did it, right? You're all actively stewarding these donors. If you haven't done it yet, there's some people that made a legacy commitment now 2 years ago who you may not have spoken with since then. You should, before you go to formalize. So now we're taking stewardship and saying, let's make it a system. How are we going to do this year over year over year? And really put it down on paper with dates, calendar it into our organizational calendar. Let's get serious about how we're going to make this happen on a regular basis. And these plans will be due to us, OSNOT. We gave you a lot of time for this one because she was worried that you wouldn't get to it before the holidays, because it's already September 1st, almost August 31st, but so we're giving you till October 31st. She will remind you it is very easy to do. It should not take you a lot of time. It's not a legacy plan. What else is stewardship excellence? Beyond, we know that you're going to acknowledge and recognize your donors. You're going to express gratitude. But having an efficient back office is really critical. Getting people's names, addresses, contact information correct is critical. And it makes them feel seen and heard and appreciated. Being financially stable and responsible with your donors' money is really important. It tells them that you are a trustworthy partner, and it treats them like the partner that they are. And it further engages them in the mission of the organization. So as an organization, embrace the fact that stewardship is part of the way you are now doing business. It's part of your culture. And hopefully what you've learned is that whatever you've started to do to the legacy donors is really lovely stuff to do to all your donors, the ones that are giving you money year over year so that you can do great work in the community. That's what you want to encourage. Everyone has a role in stewardship. So your board, even if you say you don't have a fundraising board, your board should be involved in stewardship. They can all make thank you calls. That's a lovely idea for board members to do. They can all write little notes or put something in the newsletter from the board. Staff, anytime somebody walks into your building, they have the opportunity to steward a donor.
Yeah, I did.
Somebody needs to mute themselves. So staff people, I remember I walked into the Jewish Community Center when we were new in town, and I asked someone where was the fitness center, and he walked me there. And it was upstairs down a hall to the very end of the hall, like it was really far away. And it was just a staff person. And he took the time to say, the human being standing in front of me matters. And they took that extra step, and everyone can be a steward of your organization, even the maintenance people and the people letting the security team. Everyone gives the idea of honor and gratitude to people who make this organization work. You have to keep track of these stewardship efforts. Hopefully you'll be doing so many you don't need to keep track, and it will be so systematic that you won't need to keep track, but it does make sense to keep track of it, particularly because you'll find, and you already found this in Ann Arbor, that some people don't want to be recognized. Some people don't want to see their name anywhere. Some people don't want a gift, even if it hasn't cost you any money. So you want to make notes like that. And you want to make notes of things that people do like, because even if they don't want their name anywhere and they don't want any gifts, they might really appreciate you making a phone call once a year, just saying thank you. So find out what each person, how to steward each person properly. Aristotle said quality is not an act. It's not one act, but a habit. So this work of stewardship is ongoing. So take a moment in the chat to tell me, what does effective stewardship look like in your organization? Planful. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Jen, can you unmute and just tell us, give us a little word about that?
So our Life and Legacy team meets regularly, and we identified how many touch points we want in a year and how to space them out properly. And we've thought a little bit about how to vary them. And so
Nice.
we're planful about it.
Nice. And Jason said touch points at least 2 times a year. Melissa says thanking multiple times a year in different formats. So Melissa, can you unmute and tell us about the multiple times a year and the different formats that you're using?
Yeah, so I think that, I think you were just hitting this on a little bit. There are people who like to be thanked certain ways and people who like to be thanked other ways. If you think about those kind of like love languages, if you've ever done
Yes.
any of those kind of things. Sometimes just a letter is fantastic. Sometimes it's a birthday card. Sometimes it's a phone call. Sometimes it's going out to lunch. Sometimes it's that tangible item that you give them, those mugs, that the radios give out.
I love swag.
Exactly, the swag. So I think that it's important that you do more thanking than you do asking, and that you do different types of thanking throughout the year.
Beautiful.
And it does, and not always from the same person as well.
Right. Right. Other people can, and it's there's always somebody that likes to be the one sending the cards. We used to have like a sunshine committee at the synagogue. There's always somebody that likes to do that. And the key is to find those people and let them help you be better stewards. Robin at TBE, I love this. You're hosting a Life and Legacy donor dinner on September 11th, and half of your donors are attending, half of your legacy donors. That's incredible. Good work. Jason.
Sorry, having some mouse problems. So
Mouse or house?
yeah, so we've been sort of, conflicted about some of the things we're doing, because at least we've had the concern that we don't want donors to think we're spending a huge amount of money on, we're asking for donations, and then to spend thousands of dollars on an event, might not seem the most responsible use of our budgets.
Right.
So can you talk to that, from other communities with kind of similar sizes and wealth levels?
I can, but I know that all of you can talk to that also, right? Because you've experienced it. So I'm going to invite, does anybody else want to comment on what Jason said? Robin.
Robin's hand.
I would say that we are going to make it very clear to our donors that this dinner is being catered thanks to our incentive grant that we received
Nice.
from Grinspoon and Federation, and that's how we are doing it.
Nice. Melissa, you were going to say something.
I was going to say pretty much almost what Robin was going to say there. It's easy to get some of those things underwritten often.
Yes.
And I am curious if you, because I've experienced this before, where you've actually had donors tell you that, or you just assume that donors are concerned about you spending money, because that can happen a lot as well.
I can speak to that a little bit. So last year,
Unfortunately, you can.
yeah, last year, so as you know, well, maybe Melissa, you don't know, so Melissa's new to the JFS and to Life and Legacy, but each year we'll do a community-wide celebration of all of our donors, of our legacy donors. And last year was our first one. And we did have some pushback on like, because it was virtual on some of the items that were, rather than holding some big fancy event, we had picnic baskets and things like that. And we got some pushback from people who said, this is all very nice, but we don't wish to have you spend money. Now, what's interesting is we haven't held a dinner and had people say, oh, we wish you didn't have this dinner. So I think it was the tangible made people feel like we were spending unnecessary money versus a potentially more expensive dinner, which is an intangible and people don't identify all the time in the same way. But we do have a budget for it. Their donor dollars aren't being used for it. And I would say this would be a difficult thing for us to find underwriting for. It's just a different kind of thing, but I do, I think that we have to offer these opportunities because honestly, a lot of people really enjoyed, the gifts. And so people just have different interests and different, right. and thank you, Lori. And, so you're not going to please everybody all the time, but we try to do things that are will be across the board. I will say though, Jason, that for us at Federation, one of the ways in which we resolve this issue is that we do have events already or opportunities in which we honor our major donors. Just happens to be what we do. And so we include our legacy donors. So legacy donors, regardless of gift level to the annual community campaign, are invited to the Major Gifts event. And they're also invited to the pre-glow for main event. So, and in my communications, so I have semi-regular communications with our major donors. Now that we have legacy, I include the legacy donors in those communications as well and mention, people know that I'm sending this to major donors and legacy donors. And so they are having an opportunity for communication about the organization that maybe is at a deeper, sometimes deeper and more personal level, and it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think, with that organization, I mean, everyone's used to Federation events every year. I think maybe for us at HDS or even at Beth Israel, that isn't something that we've been very good about doing on a regular basis, where it's just adding on the life and legacy people. But maybe we could consider that.
TBE did something last year where they did some, I don't know, it was some special legacy Shabbat, and I don't know, did a little something special, highlighted legacy donors, and maybe the Kiddush was a little special. So like, that's also a thing. Like, it doesn't have to be a big fancy thing. It could be something that is sort of incorporated into something that we do every week. That's at least on the Beth Israel side.
You're with a day school, right, Jason? Part of your legacy work.
I wear multiple hats.
Yeah, part of it.
Like many of
day
us.
school.
I may not be doing life and legacy for Beth Israel, but I am on the board.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the day school, you have all those beautiful children. And so you have tremendous impact stories. And sharing a look at a day at school or a peek into a classroom that can be, an iPhone video that just goes like that and shows happy, engaged children. That is also a stewardship touch. So there are a lot of ways that you can show appreciation and recognition that really don't cost. Also, there are some communities where it's not only okay, but it's expected to have some nice events for people that have really contributed and created these organizations. So I wouldn't make the assumption that people don't want to be thanked, acknowledged, and recognized. I would make the assumption that they do, and then do the extra homework to figure out in what way they want to be acknowledged on a regular basis. By the way, stewardship is also, let's say that somebody loves gardening, and so you hear about a Jewish farm program and you you take the article, you clip the article, paste it and send it to that person, just say, just thinking about you, thanking you for your legacy gift, but wanted you to know about this very cool organization. I know you'll appreciate it. So making those kinds of connections just tells the donor that they are seen, they are heard, they are appreciated. And music festival and graduation, and people don't generally come. Another point, it's okay if they don't come. Just the invitation tells somebody that they are special and reminds them that they made a legacy commitment and that you know that they made a legacy commitment. Sometimes we make a pledge or something, we hope they'll forget about it, right? And if they don't send us a bill or if they don't call us and let us know, then it's as if it didn't happen. So we want our donors to know that they made a legacy commitment and that that means something, especially now as we're going to formalize. Ellen.
You know, I received an invitation to an event, Eileen, that Federation is having coming up. I can't remember the details. And I plan to attend. And I thought to myself, because I don't make a huge gift. I mean, I've increased my gift and I feel good about that. But I thought, is that amount a major gift for Federation? And I thought, oh, it must be because I now am going to be chair of the board of JFS. But now I know why it is, because of my, life and legacy commitments. So that might be something that we want to do if we're including donors specifically because of their L&L participation, to have a little note or something. I don't know, because I really didn't know why.
So the nice thing I saw, we had a barbecue at our synagogue for all the major and legacy donors. And I saw people at that barbecue that in any other major donor situation would never have been in that room. And these are people that are very active, very committed, come to synagogue every single week, and they made a legacy gift. And because of that, they were invited into the very same room as the guy or the gal that gives a lot of money every year.
It's nice. It's nice.
It was beautiful. The other element is, Eileen reminded me that we can be more clear about it, is to be transparent about where the funds are coming from for this. Like we give you, we have these beautiful stewardship cards that we sent you at the end of the first year to send to your legacy donors. We printed those at our expense. We mailed them to you at our expense. They didn't cost you a penny. So for somebody to get upset because we decided that stewardship is so important that we at the foundation want to help you do better stewardship, so just say these are courtesy of the Harold Grinspoon Foundation. Just let people know. And in thanks of our participation in the Life and Legacy program, or in thanks of your stepping forward as a legacy donor. We just put out this Legacy Matters. The first one came out last Pesach. The next one is at the printer. You'll be getting them, I think, by October. As a reminder to us not to give me a number, to send a number into Bobby if you haven't already. And you can send those. It basically is a national publication that we are just starting that tells stories about how legacy donors are making a difference in their communities. And we're going to be highlighting all kinds of stories. So if you guys find that you have a story, I would love to hear it and highlight Ann Arbor in one of our issues. And we'll be doing that twice a year. All right. I'm going to go back to my screen. So there's a few reasons that people leave, but mostly they're a sense that they didn't need my gift, that my gift didn't make a difference, like nobody noticed it, and my gift was not acknowledged. I didn't get a thank you note, right? Nobody really cared. So poor communication is what makes donors leave. So the communication that we have with our donors is really important. And every time that you can increase that communication and think about the ways in which you're communicating, vary it up to different modalities, that is really important. So I want to highlight here what we're now calling impact reporting. We used to call it annual reporting. And I even heard the other day a really nice way to call it gratitude report. A lot of times people do that around the high holidays, sometimes with a Yisker book. This is an opportunity to highlight the impact that the organization is having on real people. So this is a JFS, and they have impact statements, such as we protected 41 vulnerable elders from abuse. It was donor centric. It said, because of you, our donors and volunteers and supporters, we have helped people achieve fulfilling lives. So it's because of you. It's mission centered. The values are right there on the report. This is what we believe in. This is what matters to us. And a call to action. So tell one new person about us. Something that you can, one thing that a person can do when they see this impact report, and it makes an impression on them. And in the end of the day, effective stewardship is letting your donors know that they matter. So what's in the chat, or you can unmute and say, what is one stewardship idea that you would like to implement this year? And I've heard some of them already, which are great. Invite to the academic fair with a little nosh. What's the academic fair, Eileen?
Oh, well, that I had actually said earlier.
Yeah, I know, but it's,
Yeah, I mean, Hebrew Day School does an academic fair where, you know, really for the parents, but of late they've been inviting community members as well. And it's just, it's, as you said, the kids are the easiest sell.
right.
So, yeah.
Okay. What else? What are some ideas? In-person event focused on donors. Nice. So I went to a beautiful one at my day school. They invited all their legacy donors, and sorry, it was past presidents. They invited past presidents to a gathering at the school where we met the shlichim. So the people that had come from Israel to work in the school that year, they presented, they talked about what they bring to the school and the different things they're working on. And they did a very beautiful thing, which was they asked each of us past presidents, they said, stand up and tell us your name and when you were president, and what was going on at the time you were president. And it was so powerful to hear each person sort of a little history of the school, saying, well, I was there when we opened this building, and I was there when we hired this new director, and I was there when our enrollment went over 100 students. Like it was so powerful to hear that each president had made a difference in their own time. So I was so impressed with that as a stewardship event. Ellen at JFS, we can invite legacy donors to reception and tour of our JFS renovated building when it's completed. That is perfect. Ariel at the JCC, tell donor stories. And you have some great stories because you've been around a while. So some people have belonged to the J since they opened the doors. Let's grab those stories. I know in our JCC, there was a whole wall of, it was black and white wall that showed, you know, the groundbreaking 100 years ago and different things that had happened over history. It was beautiful. Okay, did I just do that? Oop. All right, let's go into formalization. I want you to keep thinking and keep coming up with ideas. The plan may help you do that if you feel like you're out of it. And don't forget about the high holidays, which are coming up around the corner. It's an opportunity, whether you're in your building or sending out mailings, to share some stories, to thank your donors, to use the tagline, to identify people who come in with a sticker that says, ask me about my legacy, or those beautiful pins that say life and legacy, so that people have a way to talk to one another. Those are all ideas. Think about Sukkot, which is a beautiful time for hospitality when we go outside and we open our homes to others. That's a great time to have a legacy donor event. So just to remind you, because it was now, we talked about this at the beginning of year 2. So we're now a year later, and we want to remind you of the formalization process and why it's important. The most important thing is that unless a donor formalizes their commitment, their wishes for you to receive a charitable gift from them when they are gone will not happen. And we've heard lots of stories about, unfortunately, about people who pass away and they had made a designation, they had signed a letter of intent, but they had never formalized, and the family chose not to honor the letter of intent. So formalization makes it more likely that you will get the gift, and it allows the donor to be sure that their intent will be realized. It gives heirs clarity about what the donor wanted, and it increases your chance of actually receiving the funds. So that's why formalization is so important. What we call formalization, which is different than what a foundation may want, what we call formalization is a confirmation of gift form. You have those, I'll show you a picture just to remind you, or a letter from a professional advisor saying that their client has designated you as a recipient in their charitable plans, or a portion of the will or trust that designates you as the beneficiary, or a copy of the beneficiary form with the information on it. The other ways are a cash now gift. That is a formalized and realized gift. And if someone has signed the letter of intent and check the box that says, I have already made arrangements, I just didn't tell, I haven't told you, that also counts as a formalized gift. You want to thank the donor for their commitment. Remember, this is not an ask. You've already asked them. They already answered. They already said, yes, they will make a legacy commitment. So you just want to thank them through the stewardship that you've done the last year and a half. And then you do want to ask them to formalize. We want to make it easy, and we want to encourage gently. We have to be persistent and patient. So there's two people playing two roles. The Federation's role is that they will do some communal stewardship, like this annual event that they'll be having. And they will be sending out an initial formalization request letter if you want them to. So the last time that we did this, which was at the beginning of year 2, one of the organizations opted out. They wanted to do their own. That is fine. Just let OSNOT know. They will notify you, OSNOT will notify you when the letters are sent so that you can follow up someone from your team with a phone call within 2 weeks. Did you receive the letter asking about your formalization? Have you had an opportunity to do that? And the Federation will keep backup documentation. So each time you get that formalization, submit it to OSNOT, and she will keep it as part of her master files. Your role as team members is to follow up, and that will be when the letter comes out, you have to follow up with the ask. You may have to follow up several times because it's at the top of the to-do stack when I get the letter, but then it falls down into the bottom. So how do I get it up there to the top? And sometimes that can be a visit from someone at the synagogue with a little jar of honey and an apple that says Happy Rosh Hashanah. And that reminds me, oh yeah, I was going to formalize my gift. And then it goes to the top of the pile. So there's lots of follow-up, and the team will be responsible for that. This is out of order. Steward first, then formalize, follow up, and get documentation. So what's the timing? Here's the boxes on your letter of intent. Today, I or we make a commitment and will legally formalize it within the next blank number of months. We requested 12 or less. So many of these commitments were made already over a year ago. They are waiting for you to formalize these commitments, and they will not do it unless you ask, chances are. But some of them will do it more easily than others. So we want to give them lots of opportunities to formalize their gift. The easy way is this letter that will go out from the Federation that will have the confirmation of gift form. It will have beautiful ways to give so that people can start thinking about how they might make their gift. And hopefully some of them will just come back because of that letter. And Eileen, I know that happened last year quite a lot. Other people are going to need that follow-up phone call from you, realizing that, oh, you knew that they sent a letter. So now there's a communication loop. So people know that I got to do this. I really got to do this. And then the follow-up over time will encourage them to do it. So this is what the confirmation of gift form looks like. That is another way for them to designate that they have formalized their gift. Sometimes what we find is that people may add or subtract organizations when they formalize their gift. Hopefully add rather than subtract, but so sometimes we do see some shifting around in that. And I think that's all good. It's because people are hearing about this and thinking about it and making decisions. And then this is the giving options. So lots of different ways you can make your gift. And we know that people at different ages and stages in life tend to give differently through different vehicles. And the Foundation Federation can help you with that. So when you have a great conversation that led to an LOI, thank them. On your letter of intent, you mentioned you would be formalizing in blank 12 months. I'm just checking in to see, have you had an opportunity to take the next step and formalize your gift? Can I offer any assistance? Is it okay if I check in with you if they say no, or, I'll get to it, don't worry. Is it okay if I check in with you in a month or in a few weeks? This is a great opportunity to deepen the conversation. So some of those first ones, you may have had the conversation, or they may have just signed the letter of intent. Now's the opportunity to say, we're thinking about our future. And we're thinking about who we want to be in that future, and what impact, what difference do you want to make in our future? That's where you get some really great conversations. So I have here some nice questions about, and you'll get a copy of the PDF afterwards. These are some nice questions about that you can ask a donor once you're sitting with them to encourage them to formalize their gift. Is there anyone you'd like to honor or memorialize through your gift? Are there specific areas of interest you'd like to support? So nice things. There's some objections and the ways that you might respond to them. I don't want to go into them now because I think we're almost at time. But they are here. And when people say these things, there's a way that you can respond that may keep them open to the possibility. So how do you start this thing? Start with yourself. If you haven't formalized, figure out how to do it. Talk to a team member and have them walk you through it, or call Eileen or call Osnat and have them walk you through it. How do I do this? That will teach you what questions come up, what objections come up, what issues come up. And as you deal with them, you'll see that it takes time till you actually sign the paper, make it happen. So it'll teach you a lot about the process. So yourself and your legacy team members go first, then talk to the board members who have already signed a letter of intent. You can talk about it at a board meeting before you talk to the board members, right? You can talk about the importance of formalization, why you're asking them to do it, the fact that they've already committed, this is just the next step, and then follow up with personal conversations. And then reach out to other legacy donors with a letter or an email first, and then follow up with a personal phone call. And person to person always achieves the best results. And those can be virtual. So if you're still not getting back together, or if somebody's more comfortable on a Zoom call, use the technology that we have. So it's natural to put this off because we don't want to think about ever dying. I liked this quote, I procrastinate so much, I'll probably put off death and never die. But we all know we will. So formalization is the natural next step after they've indicated their intent, which they have already done. Gently and repeatedly reassure the donor that formalization ensures their intent will be realized. And the last element is that it feels really good when you formalize. When you sign that piece of paper, knowing that you've taken care of that, it's just like doing a medical power of attorney. Like, you know that someone is going to take care of things. You know that your intentions will be honored. So for year 3, the Federation is again offering you a tremendous incentive grant of $5,000. In order to get these grants, you have to have at least 8 new conversations, secure at least 4 new LOIs, formalize 50% of the LOIs that were secured in years 1 and 2, and many of you are already at that level, so don't worry, we'll get to that. Create and implement the year 3 stewardship plan, and continue your quarterly reporting. But we're offering you even more money. You can get up to $7,000. So what can you do to get that extra $2,000? You can get to 60% of formalization of those LOIs. You can hold and document 4 team meetings. That's a gimme. You can invite Eileen or Osnat or one of their representatives from the foundation or federation board to address your board. Somebody had a really nice idea in one of my communities. They said, can we invite another board member from another organization that's doing really well to come address our board and our organization? So that's also a nice idea. Remember, you have some good resources in your community. Secure 2 additional LOIs. So you'd be trying to get 6 instead of 4. And prepare and submit at least 1 donor testimonial for publication in the Jewish News or another way that goes to more than just your organization. So just by telling that story, you can help qualify yourself for that additional incentive money. So how are you going to do in year 3? You're going to tell them how you use your incentive grant. Like Robin's idea was great. This is how we used it. We're throwing this event. Please take advantage. Update your prospect list. And are there any current donors? Some of you have more than 50 donors already. Can any of them help you get another donor? Do they know of anyone who might be interested in making a legacy gift? Share these testimonials and refresh your team, because some of you may be feeling a little tired. Even though we're switching it up, there isn't the buzz that there was at the beginning. And so bring somebody new onto your team who sees that, wow, you got it started, but look at where we're at and look at what can be done. So some people are great at starting things up and some people are better at keeping things going. So don't hesitate to add a new member to your team. We have lots of ways that we can train them and get them on board. Speaking of upcoming ways to train, we are running some national training. So if you or anyone on your team missed the stewardship training that we had the first year, September 8th, I'll be offering that training to whomever is interested. September 14th, we are doing a training on the legacy conversation. So if you feel rusty on that, that's a good one to attend. And September 22nd, which I didn't put on here, but we're going to be doing one from letter of intent to formalization. I didn't put it on here because I just gave you the information. So there probably won't be a lot of new information on that. These are really intended for new team members to get up to speed on legacy. So your year 3 starts tomorrow. Your end of year 2 report is due to Osnat by September 15th. Hopefully you've been keeping up to date on the report, and it's as easy as just sending it to her so that she can reconcile and get her master up to date. And these stewardship plans will be due by the end of October. You can, when you fill out those stewardship plans, you can put on there things that you do over the high holidays. So things that you did that are already completed, you can put on your stewardship plan for year 3, because your year 3 has officially already begun. And it's just a moment of inspiration. Your future is created by what you do today. I'm going to stop sharing and invite any comments or questions from you all.
Something came up at our team meeting yesterday that I think can help maybe a little bit with the formalization. And in addition to the one pager that you shared, we're thinking about how we might be able to do similar to what we did at the beginning of Life and Legacy, where we did a community event about what it means. Maybe we could do some sort of Zoom or in-person event with all legacy donors about how to formalize, right?
Great idea.
Yeah, and because, yeah, I mean, what we don't want to do is overcomplicate it. It's actually fairly simple. But I think people in their heads feel like it's very complicated. So offering something like that, I think might be something that we'll be looking to do in the next several months.
Great. So Eileen, you might want to coordinate that with the letter so that when the letter goes out to the legacy donors, you can have a paragraph at the end that says, please join us
Ah, nice idea.
at this time for a panel on,
We can get a date. Yeah.
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 And you have those, you have professional advisors that you work with, right?
I mean, we have professional advisors. We have really great people, like Robin and other people on
Yep.
the CE team. I mean, honestly, like, again, when I talk about not overcomplicating, I could give this thing, right? It's not, I want to make it easy for people because I don't
Right.
want to get into a whole thing about charitable remainder trusts. I really
Right,
want to
right.
be like, sign as a beneficiary.
right.
But
Very
that's
few of you will do charitable remainder trusts.
right.
Great if you can, but most of you will do wills. Some of you will do IRAs. Some of you will do life insurance and some of you will do cash. That's what we're seeing across the country.
So we'll, I think, we'll definitely think about, I mean, I shouldn't give it, but, think about who are the right people to give this session and, and that's a good idea to coordinate it with a letter, but, so we'll get something on the calendar and then we can start pulling this.
That's also a nice way, when the letter goes out, when the team members follow up, when you all go to follow up, you can say, will you be attending? Or did you hear about, we'd love to have you attend. So really nice communal work together there. All right. Well, thank you so much for your attention and being here with me tonight. And I look forward to getting to visit you, I hope.
Yeah, let's try, but hopefully not in the middle of the winter where we'll
No,
have to.
not in the middle of the winter. All right. Take care, you all. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.